Miss Anastasia, and it is pronounced Anastasia, believes in the enchanting power of children's books as she has more than 2,000 of them, and she has brought children's books and characters to life for nearly 20 years. And besides her weekly story time at the Twig Bookshop, which is product placement in the Twig Bookshop, her magic happens at schools, churches, shelters, and the occasional backyard trampoline. Is that right? A true story. That is a true story. A mother of three and a former elementary school teacher, she remains wild, wacky, and young at heart, and her favorite Wii fans say that Miss Anastasia is better than cupcakes. True story. Please welcome Miss Anastasia!
Well, thank you very much. When they asked me to apply to this, I said, first of all, I can't pronounce it. And also, I haven't done anything grown up since the 90s. So this is my first real grown-up thing. And I want to thank Vicki for holding my hand and helping me through it. And in the audience are some of my costume characters out of character. They're amongst you. The fraternity is here. So without further ado, let me hit that bar. Children have an amazing way of seeing you in a way that you can't see yourself. And this is a drawing that a child gave me as a present. I apparently never sit down. I levitate between sitting and standing. I have amazing long arms, and I can hold a book that I can see and the children can see. And this is my very copy of Curious George, which I love. And I want you to think back to the books that you loved when you were a kid. For the characters, they became your friends. Curious George came to my house, and he was in my powder room, and he sat on the throne, and that's a real picture. And we all learned to love books in the laps of our parents. That's my dad reading to my two brothers, my dad reading to my daughter, my sister-in-law reading to my preemie twin Ingrid. My husband, when I got him a copy of The Littlest Angel, his favorite book, circa 1970. And then that was Llama Llama Red Pajama getting the biggest hug at the children's shelter. I sat down and I did something grown up that other grown-ups do. They write down what they do and where they go. And this is the first time I've ever done this. And yes, I really did read in a trampoline. And I really did read in a police car. This is my office. My husband is dying of embarrassment. I cleaned it in the rainstorm. It looks much better. And I use those slanty bookshelves that my father built me. The books stay just right that way. And I collect the books that I'm going to do my story time on. This was about trains and the zoo. And I packed that little case there full of a story time craft, kind of a lowest denominator. We're thinking stickers and glue here. And I loaded up in that car, which is big enough to hold the head of the wild thing. And when I bought the car, I had the wild thing, and I said to the gentleman, it really needs to fit this large head like this. No, that is not the wild thing. That is Splat the cat. And when you have to fill that in at the hospital and the doctor, like, what do you do? It's so embarrassing. So I get these books together, and I chat with children, and then I sing, if you're ready and you know what eyes I mean. And I sing this whole song, and I bring really 3 books to life. I do that craft. I get to hang out with little cutie pies like that at the bookstore. And if I have a really good day, I can find just the right book for just the right kid. And they go home happy. These are my people. This is Miss Betty in the audience here. You don't know the kind of person that comes alive inside of a costume. You might recognize some of these, and what really gets me is at the shelter, the children's shelter, I go every month. Sometimes it's the biggest kid that hugs that character the most. You just don't know who needs a hug, and all kinds of people need a hug. When I did this job to get ready for this, my brother took pictures of me, and I'd never really seen myself. So that was nice. That was a moment. And I really was told by a child that I was better than cupcakes. I was the present to the class for their birthday. And when you go out and read to kids, and the parents come up to you and say, would you teach me how to do that? I want to do what you do. I want to. Yeah, so that's flattering. So this is all in one story. This is the same sweater. And my brother has a nice camera, and he helped me a lot. This is why I do this. Reading books, real books, develops vocabulary. The kids recognize patterns. They play with language. They learn to love it. That's my 5'7" daughter at 2 months. I'm reading a prayer for Owen Meany. She doesn't care. She is not a critic. Children are not critics. They just want you to sit with them and hold them and read to them. And what's neat about my job is I get to see books before they're born. So that's called a galley, and that's the artist's first attempt at this page that's above. And I tell the kids, you get another chance. Everybody gets a redo. Everybody gets a chance to improve themselves. And then I get told, well, why do you need the book? I mean, just, don't use the book. Okay, you got to have the books with kids. Books are multisensory. If you're a toddler, you can even eat it. You can feel it, the smell of the book. When you get a new book, it goes like, when you open it up in the pages, it's just all those emotions. And so I carry books wherever I go. I'm not morally opposed to iBooks. I just think that children need real books. And when I leave my job, I want that kid to rush out to the bookstore and look for it. And I'm in competition, some serious competition with those big bad boys. And I have to work so hard to compete with that. And my goal is that there's going to be less TV and more books in the homes of these children that I read to. And if I do a good job, oh, thank you, I get notes like this. Miss Anastasia, thank you for reading Skippy John Jones and using your voice being funny and yelling quietly. I like it when you act like a rock star. That was from Ian, and I was floating again. And here's Miss Anastasia, I enjoyed the book when you said, Henny, Henny, you got a little yummy yummy from a tummy tummy. You're so funny. I like how you showed me Jan Brett's hedgehog stories. I will check them out at the library and at the public library down the street from my house. And I was like, that is a job done. That is when I've done my job. And this is my all-time favorite picture. This is at the children's shelter. This little guy just stood right up in the middle of my story time and walked over and paid me about $1 million right there. And that's my favorite picture. Thank you.
Wow. That I don't think I've seen this. I feel like I should say Anastasia on the main stage. All right, first of all, except for the TV part, that was awesome.
The news is very important.
No.
That's
Okay. A, is your name Anastasia?
Yes. Anastasia Joy Willette Merida McKenna.
And how did you get into reading professionally?
I was a teacher, and I sometimes really liked the reading part more than the science part. And I worked at a bookstore in Toad Hall with my very best friend, Tiffany. And we were Miss Anastasia and Miss Tiffany, and then I got married, and I just kept the Miss part.
Okay, and now you threw in there, speaking of which, you mentioned preemie in there. Is that like a current preemie? And then you mentioned a 5'7" kid that's now, do you have?
That's Ingrid, and she's a preemie twin. She's 4 3/4, and she actually passed away. So this is sorry. For her right now.
Thank you. I was going to say also, what do parents do wrong when we read to our kids? First of all, we just don't read to our kids, right? But then, how, as a parent, when I read to my kid, can I be a better reader? Can I get that kid to look at me? Do I have to sing, "If you're ready and you know what eyes on me"? Which would be a great news open now that I think of it. But
Can you do this? Because that really.
so what do you do? Do you have to have
I think the number one mistake is they use stories at bedtime only, and they want their child to go to bed. So if you bring the stories out, I mean, I had stories with me all the time, and you got to read to them at any time, and they are not critical. I'm not really a good singer. They don't care. They just want you to hold them and sit with them and put yourself out there, and obviously, I'm out there.
You're out there. Okay, now people can see you there. Where else are you on a regular basis if they want to go to you, or they call you, they can hire you, sign you up?
Yeah, I kind of operate through the Twig bookstore, and I go out to schools. I go to the children's shelter with Miss Betty once a month, and I really do weird birthday party readings too.
Okay, and two questions. Why did you read in a police car, and what is a fraternity?
So I learned this from the Spurs Coyote. If you are a costume character and you've been in one and they're out there, you are a member of the fur, as an F-U-R, fraternity.
Right.
Yes, and then the
Not what I thought at all.
and then the police car. A little guy from the children's shelter one Halloween showed up at my house, and his family left him, and so I went to the Almost Park police station with this little guy, and at the end of the night, we drove him to the children's shelter. I knew the way, and I sang him songs, and we did story time, and I was in the back of a police car.
Oh, dude, how many times have I said that to my kids? All right. Thank you very much, and I apologize for asking the question there about your daughter.
That's quite all right.
Miss Anastasia!